journey will guide inside the ride where we fly. Virtual roads touch the sky. Join us here, don't be shy. Inside the ride, yeah, we hide.
Welcome to Inside the Ride by MyWhoosh. Quite a special show today. I am sat here with Jonny Brownlee, an iconic, a legendary figure in the world of triathlon. I've been lucky enough to meet Jonny a couple of times, but most recently, we met down in London for the Supertri event, which was, just a few weeks ago now?
Yeah, thanks for having me. And it's Supertri a couple of weeks ago, and I really enjoyed it. Firstly, it's great to be back in the Olympic Park, obviously. Amazing memories. Secondly, it was great to be back and be competitive. I actually really enjoyed it. I felt absolutely brilliant in the heat, cruised through that, thinking, oh, here we go. Came back to the Olympic pool 6-7 hours later. Didn't feel quite as good, but I was still competitive, and that's what I was pleased with, especially that format. Doesn't really suit me with the pool swim and the real fast, explosive stuff. But and also when the crowd was amazing. I absolutely love that, and it's a bit of a pinch me moment still when you turn up to those kind of events and there's kids there with signs saying "Go Jonny," and they want things signed afterwards. So it's still a bit of a pinch me moment. So it's a great day. I really enjoyed it.
I wanted to ask you about that because it's fairly new phenomenon, right? This indoor e-triathlon.
Yep.
And I witnessed the UCI Cycling World Champs back in October. And in that environment where you're not going off 10 miles up the road on your run or your ride and stuff, the crowd are there on top. And that's something I was focused with the team and delivering the event, right? And watching you guys compete was phenomenal. And it wasn't until the event ended. And yes, we're in the UK. And yes, we're in that iconic venue of 2012, and we're going to talk about 2012 soon as well. But just the atmosphere and watching the kids with the signs and stuff, it was such like a positive and environment to be in. And you guys felt that as athletes there as well, right?
Yeah, really felt that. I'm a massive football fan, so to compete in a stadium like that is something I absolutely love. And in triathlon, we do talk about stadiums and Supertri to lose. There's more kind of amphitheatre there, but to actually kind of be in a stadium, in a pool, every time when the race was kicking off, to hear the shouting, the screaming, the noise pick up, made you go faster on the turbo, and you really, really felt it. It felt like a great family and friendly event, and a celebration of sport and celebration of triathlon. And I was definitely felt kind of pressurized and spurred on by it, but in a good way. When you dive in the water and you lift your head for the first time, you hear the crowd screaming, and then even afterwards, you're handing out hats and things to kids and signing bottles, and it's nice to be kind of in that environment. Whereas, like you say, normally in a race, you very much the crowd's either spread out, or by the time you finished, they've gone home, but it was actually that real stadium feel. And this kind of the indoor triathlon is a new thing. I was there at the start in COVID times when it was a bit weird because obviously there's no crowd, and that's, I think, that's the best thing about the indoor stuff is the crowd. And then to go through now to where it is, I think it's absolutely brilliant. It's obviously different, and over time I think people specialise at it. If you were to have someone who's to really specialise it and really focus on it, I think they'd be absolutely amazing, and it'd be a slightly different athlete, because you'd want someone who could knock out a 1:55 200-meter swim, which I just can't do, and then get on the bike and even be a big rower kind of person and knock out 450 watts for 5-6 minutes. They probably can't go around a corner, so they'll be no than the outdoor stuff, but they'll be big and strong. It's its own sport, and it's brilliant. I absolutely loved it. I love going down to London, like I said, and I love being part of that, the whole event.
It's really interesting. A lot of things you said there, the similar discussions we've had in my background cycling, right? And when we, traditional road cyclists convert into an indoor cyclist, and we're starting to see those specialist athletes come through, and the cycling space with UCI and MyWhoosh and the World Championships, and also the Sunday Race Club we've really started to develop this athlete who is absolutely just focused on indoor events. And also my feeling is that in some ways it's could be the future as well, because I've got young kids and that safety side of not wanting to send kids out on the roads and things like that. But just coming back to that Supertri event, you mentioned, for me again, watching you and watching the interaction with the kids, because you look like you're having so much fun throwing the stuff into the crowd. You were stealing the microphone off the presenters, and it just looked like an incredibly. But coming back to the racing, you had a really good heat in the morning. You went really well there. So something must have been kicking in the brain, thinking, I've got a chance here today.
You definitely. Well, I started it thinking, I don't know how I'm going to be doing this race. I've not done this for a few years. I meant to do it the year before, but I got really bad flu a week out, and I couldn't have done it. And the year before that, I had a sore hamstring as well. So again, I'd pull out. So and there's always that nerves of I've not done this for a while. Am I getting too old for this? And I'm not even going to make it through the heat. And I was getting messages on Instagram saying that young kids will come to watch me, and made the sign for the evening, and thought, well, I better make it through the heat. So there's always that nerves, and set off on the swim. I came out. Well, actually, the guy in the lane next to me was a fastest swimmer. He took off like anything. And I thought, I'm behind here already. But looked the other way, and I was in front of everyone else. So I thought, okay. And then got to the front of the bike, and then thought, right, brilliant, and I'm in control here. Maybe I can do that, and my engine on the bike is going to take me to the front, and then the run, I'll be able to hold my own again, and the next time on the bike, it'd make a massive difference. I'll be even better than everyone else. So yeah, I felt absolutely brilliant in the heats. It felt like, wow, it felt quite easy, in control. But I did say at that point that Supertri racing is really easy when you're the one in control. At that point, it's easy to jump on your bike, get your shoes on. It's easy to put your hat and your goggles on. Everything feels so easy. Yeah. When you're all the way around, it's about keeping calm. So yeah, I honestly, I thought I had a great chance. I saw that I had a very similar time to Chase. I didn't really watch his race. I didn't know how hard he was going, but I knew I had more in me. I also thought that the extra triathlon would suit me more, because it was turning into a 42-minute time trial. So then I went home, and back to the hotel room, recovered, and thought, right, my way of doing well on this is turn it into a 42-minute time trial. Yeah. And my philosophy was just going to be stay in it. I did stay in it, but a bit further behind than I wanted to be. But after the heat, to answer the question, I really thought I had a chance.
What were your thoughts on, because what I really, there was moments when the crowd, you can see the crowd going up. And I remember watching, I can't remember which leg it was, either the first or second leg on the bike.
Every time you
were picking up places, moving up there. You didn't have the best start, and then you got up to fifth, and then fourth, and then it came back to fifth. The racing seemed, then we've got the finish between, and, the two athletes there as well. The racing seemed incredibly tight, because I think you also were having a battle right until the last minute.
Yeah, it's really, really tactical racing. It wasn't just stare at your screen, try and knock out as close to 400 watts as you can. It was really tactical. I was thinking, right, on the last leg, where do I think I can come here? Okay, I think I can get fifth. So I was trying to get as close as possible, and I knew when I got on the run, with 90 seconds to go, I was just going to give it everything.
Yeah.
And I closed the German guy down in fifth, and we had a full-on sprint finish. Obviously, it's a slightly different sprint finish, because with about 20 seconds to go, you can't necessarily see them. So I just thought, right, give it absolutely everything. And first, it's amazing how the treadmills, when you think the end's near, how fast you can get them going. In the sessions beforehand, I did one session on the turbo on the treadmill in Leeds, and 20 kilometers an hour was really hard. But at the end of it, I think we got up to 21, 22 kilometers an hour, just going absolutely max. I didn't actually know until about half an hour afterwards whether I was fifth or sixth. But no, it was really, really good racing. And fun racing, hard racing. And it is one of the hardest kind of races I've done, because your heart rate just gets high and stays high for so long. And they were saying, on the outdoor stuff, there's always a dead turn, or the swim's actually sometimes quite easy in the outdoor, because you get on someone's feet, there's no point going around them. On the bike, you get to a technical bit, you can get your heart rate down, but there, heart rate just doesn't come down. So really, really hard racing. And I was hoping that the three different triathlons was going to suit me, but I didn't quite get up there, so I felt like I was the one who was getting nailed the whole time. And that's when I started to mess up my hat, my goggles, and start to chase a bit too much. And as much as I told myself to keep calm and stay in it, it's quite hard when you're 20, 30 seconds behind. You want to be near the front.
Well, I'll try and put this as sensitively as possible then, because obviously, there's so much we could talk about with you, right? From 2012 to 2016 and some of the infamous things that happened in 2016. But obviously, also, I'm looking back to your 23. I think you got a medal at the Europeans, and then 24 was like, well, you got married in 24. You got Brownlee Fitness, which is continuing to grow.
Yeah.
Where are we in the sort of the career of Jonathan Brownlee 2.0 then? Where are you now, and what does that look like over the next year?
Well, that's a big question. Yeah, I'd say since 2016, there's been some ups and downs. We might come on to that later, but I'd say now to answer that question, I'm at a stage in my career where I want one or two really good performances to prove that I can still do it. And I want, firstly, a really good Supertri performance. I feel like I've been close to that, but never quite been able to finish it off. There's been a couple of years where I've gone to the final race in contention and then not quite done it. And then I also want one good long distance race, a 70.3 race, to prove to myself that I can do it, because there's been lots of doubts of whether I can do that over the last 2 years. There's been glimmers of a hope. There's been, you mentioned then the European Champs in 2023 Madrid. The week before, I raced in Cagliari and was awful, and in the World Series, and thought, well, what's the point of doing this? And then to bounce back a week later in Madrid and go, right, I can do this. So there's been lots of that. And lots of times, Supertri has actually been a thing that's saved my career of thinking, I can't do this. Oh, wow, glimmer of hope, off we go again. To keep bouncing back. But yeah, I want a couple of good performances to prove that I can do it. At the same time, I would say I'm at a point in my career now when, into 2012, 2016, my whole life was based around sport. Yeah. So on a Tuesday night, it would be about a good swim in the morning, a bit of a run, feet up all day, snooze, go to bed for a couple of hours, make sure you eat well, come back and do the track, the most important thing. With life, Brownlee Fitness as well, and that kind of thing. I actually, in many ways, I don't want to live that life now where it's all about the sport. I think I've got more to give to that. So that's more in life, in personal life, but also with the Brownlee Fitness as well. So I actually really enjoy going on a Tuesday and having calls, talking to athletes, thinking about training plans, and then spending more time doing that, and then also doing my training, but it not just be about resting and training. Yeah. I actually think sometimes if I spend a whole day in bed or waiting for a track session, it's actually a bit of a waste of my day. I'd rather there's more things I can give. Whereas, like I said, in 2012, I would feel like I'm letting myself down as an athlete.
You were living, breathing as an athlete, as full-time pros do, I guess. So I guess then, there's a lot of the community that have not had the honour, being, the pointy end of elite sport. And I guess now you're you're having to balance the things that people like me who want to be the best we can be, but we've got the life and the work and the kids and these things. How has that impacted your training and the way you train yet as well? Obviously you've been in the sport 20 years. So has the sort of the social changes that come as you get older impacted? Has the way your body has changed meant that you have changed the way you train as well? And I'm asking that question because I also know that you're head coach at Brownlee Fitness, so you've got some knowledge on these things, right?
Yeah, definitely. So answer question is yes. I think I can't do the amount of training that I used to be able to do in 2012. I actually didn't record it that much, so I didn't know how many Ks I used to run. We were back 2010, 2011 times when GPS watches weren't as good as they are now and that kind of thing, so I actually didn't record much of it. But the days of me being able to probably run 120, 130k, go down to track on a Tuesday night and run around at 64 per 400 meter pace for 5k. I can't do that anymore, so I have to train differently and smarter. So now it's very much the same philosophy of training, which for me is I have my hard sessions: Tuesday morning swim, Tuesday morning run, Thursday bike session, Thursday morning swim, and Saturday kind of more tempo run. But I can't do the volume around it that I used to be able to do. I used to be able to Monday do 2 runs, Tuesday do 2 runs, Wednesdays do 2 runs, and I can't do that now. It's down to single running every day, protecting those hard sessions still, but we're taking the volume out of it. Nowadays as well, obviously I used to go training camps to St. Moritz, to L2 training for 4 or 5 weeks of a year. Life for that, I don't really want to do that anymore, and my kind of training squad's changed. So I used to go away with great group of athletes, Bucko, Gordon, all these guys who we we grew up with, and I realised I was so fortunate to do that. Now I'm at the end of my career. Those guys have moved on to other jobs, proper jobs, if you like.
Yeah.
So there's not that kind of group anymore. So I actually prefer being at home. So yeah, I think obviously I still give everything I possibly can, but I'd say it's kind of scaled back a little bit to what I can do and be consistent. And some of that is definitely the reward of in those years of 2010, 2014, my proudest, when I was on the podium for every race I did, something like 45 podiums. And so when you are doing well, and it's worthwhile going those training camps, it's worthwhile putting everything into a session. And then over the last few years, without having the results, sometimes it does become harder to do that because you don't get the much reward as I used to get. And I've had a lot of times where I've put a lot of effort in. I think 2023, I went away to San Moritz altitude, committed everything for that 5-week period into Paris Olympic game test event. I had an awful race. And it's just like, can I keep doing this? I've done that. So things are different, but with the Brownie fitness stuff, answer that question, I've trained the same way a lot my entire career. So it's been really good with the Brownie fitness athletes to learn that you can do things differently and how people do it. And even nowadays, when I make a swim video to try and help someone out, then it makes me think more about my stroke and think about my leg kick, and I think, am I doing that right, or maybe I'm not. So I actually think my my swimming has improved because I've actually had to think about it more, not just turn up at the pool, because I'm actually engaged with the Brownie fitness stuff in other people's swimming. I'm like, well, I'm going to think about my swimming more as well.
That's really interesting. So were you one of those athletes who you'd have a program to follow and you would just follow that program, or were you one of those athletes who wanted to know every detail step by step of what you were doing, or was it a combination of the two?
A bit of combination. My brother was definitely very much the leader in that he wanted to know why everything was done. I was very much the consistent, just turn up every single day and do the session. I think into 2012, that year of training, I don't think I missed like a minute of training into London 2012. My strength was consistently not overthinking it, just turn up, every session being doing a session but not going over the line, and why things, I guess. I didn't really want to know so much. I just did it, I guess, for motivating. With the philosophy, like I say, you protect your sessions and you keep your easy sessions easy and hard sessions hard. I didn't really think too much about the science of it all, of what it was doing to your body or anything. I was just that's what worked. I think in many ways, no years it was easy because I didn't overthink it, because it worked. I got the results. So I was like, I didn't need to question it, because I'd turn up in 2012 to the first race of the year in San Diego, win that, go to Madrid, win that quite easily, and go, right, the train's working, so why do I need to overthink it? And maybe it's only when things don't start to go quite as well that then you start to overthink it more and go, do I need to do this better? Do I need to do heat training more? Do I need to, am I doing too much? Am I doing too little? Whereas when you get the results, you just go, it works. I don't need to overthink it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, there's two things I realised when we spoke on the phone just before I got here as well. I know you've been heat training downstairs as well. We're doing the cafe ride later as well, so hopefully it's cooled down before I get in there. But at the same time,
Got the windows open, don't worry.
But the thing, I know you've been, we're at your place now in it's Otley Way, Leeds sort of way somewhere. And what I realise is every time you finish your training session, you have to finish on a hill.
Yeah.
So that's going to say to something, but. A couple of things stood out to me there, because you said it twice as well. The hard sessions are hard, the easy sessions have to be easy. And that's something I think, as I've started coaching more as well on MyWhoosh, is that what I find is it's really easy to go out and do zone 3 ride again and again and again. And then when you get to that quality ride, you've not got time to do it. Yeah, you're too tired, right? So it's really interesting. So that's something that you will really focus on as an athlete. And I guess that links to the other thing that I'm thinking about is, this place where you live is a bit of a hotbed for, we spoke about Bucko there, and I know that you were active in the cross-country leagues locally back then as well.
Cycling, look at the amazing riders, Tom Picott doing there, Sam Watson.
I'm going back a little bit further, but the Tanners of this world back then. But, you've had those strong running groups that I'm sure that you were running with in the night a week, and there was that, probably the Thursday night chain gang that you were probably getting on at the same time as. Were those sort of the focus sessions when you were younger then?
Yeah, and that's why a lot of our training philosophy came the way it did, because, like I said, Tuesday was a hard run session because the runners did a hard track session. So I might as well go and join those guys because there's a session there. Thursday was a hard bike session because that's when the chain gang is, the Leeds chain gang. And then the runners also did a session on Saturday, and that worked well. So our training philosophy was built around joining those the cultures around Leeds and then building everything else around it. So yeah, they definitely helped do that. And that's one of the great things about here is I can go down to Leeds Beckett University and run with 50 runners who run sub 50-minute 5Ks.
Yeah.
I used to, the Leeds chain gang is not quite as good as it used to be. I think that's another kind of casualty to everyone having their own sessions to do and COVID kind of stopping that. But we used to be able to turn up the Leeds chain gang and have 50 riders who used to go at 40, and it used to be 40k, which is quite funny because what I need to race in a triathlon as high as you can go, basically, finishing up the Ottishevin at the end. And they'd have everyone from Tom Pidcock turned up probably from the age of 10 years old to, Scott Freights was one of the ones who led it, to a local gardener who used to beat them all. So, other Chevin, and we used to be the hardest rides ever, absolutely giving everything to hang on that wheel up Ottishevin. And then we used, for the weirdos, they used to throw your bike in the field and go for a run.
Afterwards, it's funny. I heard that story. Obviously, we got a mutual friend who I used to work with, Bucko, who's obviously coaching in this space still as well. And he said to me, because I rode about it, said, "Come on this chain gang." And I think I got spat 30 kilometers in. He said, "Yeah, but don't forget Ali and Johnny. They're going to ditch the bike and go for some point, and then just go straight for a run after." I'm like, really? Like, yeah. I'm excited to see how full gas these guys are.
The cyclists just think we're absolutely crazy.
Well, you've had 20 years in this space, and you've experienced the technology progress over that time as well. So, looking forward, I've had a similar experience from you, right? Of doing Thursday night chain lines, Tuesday night group rides, wherever it might be, Saturday day, you're getting your cafe ride and stuff. We're doing a virtual cafe ride today. We've recently recorded the workout with you online as well.
I really enjoyed doing that. So
yeah, and I guess my thing, I'm interested to get your view of we're seeing these live sessions in this virtual space getting busier and busier. I know that you also have got your coaching going on as well. What is your thoughts on what does the future of training look like for, I've got 12-year-old kids, for example. What is it going to look like for the next generation virtually, do you think? And how do you think MyWhoosh is going to play a role in that?
Well, I think the future going forward it's going to be more prescriptive training, isn't it? It's going to be more scientific. Everyone's going to want to go out and do a specific session that works for them, and rather than just go out and ride like we talked about before, because it's so measurable now, and people want to be able to talk about, right, I've done this is my wattage I've done, my FTP's increased, my heart rate's come down, or whatever. And I think that indoor training they've got a perfect place for that. Days now looking back that I used to have a turbo trainer on a wheel that as you got sweaty it slipped and you had to stare at a wall, and if you're lucky you would watch a film. And I remember doing things of watching Christmas films, and every time we would play a game, every time a character came on, you would go as hard as you could while they were speaking, and then when they stopped speaking you would stop going hard. And that was a prescriptive.
Chris, well, doesn't sound that fun in the Brownlee household.
And you'd be watching a Christmas film and the actor would want to shut up speaking. You're like, shut up! I want to stop going hard. But yeah, that's, to keep it as funny as you possibly could. To now, how it's changed indoor. I could go down, do an indoor workout, join other people. Even if I don't, I could do a route and challenges and just go, right, I'm going to ride the hills hard or something. And it's so much more interesting and safer as well, because as we know, the roads are getting busier. I've realised that. I look back at some of the roads that I rode on as a kid. I would never ride on now. Our local chain gang, one of the reasons why that suffered is because they happen to have built 2 new roundabouts because of new housing estates, and it's got busier and people aren't turning up. And there have been a couple of crashes. So, if you want to keep your workouts and you want to do a specific workout, the roads don't work. So indoor workouts are absolutely perfect for that, because you can get done what you need to do without worrying about road crossings, other cars, everything. And that's great. And the indoor workout has definitely got a place. And I'm someone who does it for my heat training in winter all the time, and just for those specific workouts where I can't go out and do it because I can't think of where to get that specific effort in.
Yeah, that's really great insight. And obviously that's the future of training. You know, we know that we've got much more data than you and I. I mean, I'm 10 years older than you, but definitely, you know, what you've experienced over this 20 years as well. But what about the future of the sport of triathlon? Because again, you've witnessed this change, right? And racing outdoors seems very different. You know, if I look back to my, you know, just watching you guys as fans, you know, you and Ali, and the way you used to race so aggressively, you know, back then, when I'm not saying it's not as aggressive now, but it seems very different, you know, and if I look the bike in particular, that we're getting much bigger groups now, you know, is where you and Holly, you just ride as hard as you could off the front, you know, and then we're getting things like Supertri E, for example. You know, where do you think the sport's going?
Yeah, so I think in many ways they're quite separate. So the Supertri E, I think, has got a place, and hopefully, I don't know where that can go. If it can go into the E Games or become an Olympic sport in that way, it'd be great. I think that has got a future because it's exciting to watch, as you found out in London. It's short, fast. It's not something that takes 5 or 6 hours. It's competitive racing. I'd actually quite like to see that become its own sport in a way, and athletes really focus on that and go, right, I can make a career out of that. I'm going to just be really good at swimming in a pool, biking on a turbo, and burning on a treadmill. That's what I'm going to do. And it'd be quite good to see people specialised in that at the moment, because it's relatively new. It's still people kind of come across the outside, like answer the kind of the racing. I think triathlon's in a good place at the moment. Firstly, in all the different series. If anything, there's almost kind of too many series of people to pick, and people aren't specialising on one. They're trying to do a bit of everything now. So I think as it goes on, people might get forced to specialise on certain series, and you can't do Supertri, a bit of PTO, a bit of Olympic stuff. You've got to really commit to one. And as far as the racing goes, I think what's the change has been in the last over 10 years probably now, looking back, is the people. So not having Alistair is obviously a massive defining person to get in that swim bike breakaway, because you need one leader who's going to commit whatever, and that was Alistair. I think the courses haven't made it very easier. The fact that it's big open roads in a big group, it's easy to catch up. There's no hills. You know, Rio was the perfect course. You hit a hill after 3 or 4 minutes. Up you went, back down you went. It's really hard to get back a group together. And then I also think it changed over time. So there was the time where there's a swim bike breakaway, most races, and the culture was there of, right, if we commit to this, it's going to happen. And everyone knew that. Whereas now it's almost like a front group's just waiting to be caught, because they get caught every time. So it's almost like, okay, we're just going to come together. So we might as well wait till we get caught, and no one wants to commit. I also think the level of swimming at front's not as fast as it used to be, but there's more people near the front.
More depth.
More depth. Like, no one's swimming as fast as Richard Vargas swam, who's incredible, But then he used to line it out, and then it meant that the swim was actually really fast. Now it's just a big fight at the front, so everyone kind of comes out together. You're not actually swimming that fast. And we really committed to that. We really committed to building a team with Varga, with Alistair, to go, right, we're going to really commit to these breakaways, and whatever happens, we're going to ride for the first couple of laps, and then we'll think again. And I don't think that happens now. But it has its ups and downs, although a lot of the swim bikers seem to have left the Olympic sphere now to go into the PTO stuff. So if they are completely out of that, it might take a while before that changes again. And the runners will still keep on winning for a while, unless only more guys come through. But one of the big thing is I said a culture in course, and the culture of that breakaway winning is gone, and the courses don't allow it. So I heard this year some good World Series courses, so hopefully that changes.
It's always interesting to watch the different eras that the sport go through in evolution. And we had it in the cycling, where we had this really dominant time, and we're kind of back to a dominant time with 2 guys, as we saw this weekend as well, really, with Paris-Roubaix, phenomenal weekend of racing. So it's really interesting. So talking about eras, then we kind of went to the future before we went to the past, right? We got to come back. We can't sit down and do a podcast with you without talking about 2012. In fact, talking about all the Olympics, that you participated in. I know you're a man of history, so you studied history, right? University.
Yeah. I was my dissertation was on Richard III.
So I know you like the history. So then, if there was going to be there's a Brownlee legacy. As far as I'm concerned, there was a turning point, not just in British triathlon, but in the sport in the UK in 2012, when you and Ali did what you did. And then the couple of years later, where you obviously got first and second as well. I'm not sure if that's happened before, actually, whether siblings have got first and second in Olympic discipline, but it's there in history, but you've changed the sport of triathlon. What would you like the legacy of Jonny Brownlee to be? Or what do you think it is in the sport?
I would like it to be, obviously you talk about the cliches of someone who tried the best and somebody that gave everything and got the most out of himself. But genuinely, I would like to be someone who was given an opportunity in London 2012 to bring the sport to the kind of public sphere, and it's a sport become a bigger sport, a sport that people knew about, and took that opportunity. I realised I was very, very fortunate. Both of us were very fortunate to have the home Olympic Games, but we had to take the opportunity. We had to deal with the pressure, and that's what we did. And that was when, genuinely, the sport of triathlon went from being a sport that a few people knew a bit about to a sport that people followed and knew more about, and knew what a triathlon was, or knew someone who did a triathlon. I'm that generation of when I was at school. I started triathlon when I was 6 years old, and I won't go to school until I did triathlon on the weekend. And someone said, does that involve horse riding and shooting? I don't know, that's a different sport to 2012. But then after that, people followed it, and to go from people who knew nothing about triathlon to either knowing that we raced Javi Gomez, and people said, he's still racing that Spanish guy. And went out there and actually followed it and more. And I could talk about London 2012 for absolutely years. It was an incredible day. My training went perfect into that. We had practiced what we were going to do the year before, what hotel we were going to stay in, where we were going to train beforehand, keep it as normal as possible. But we had a perfect build-up. We went to St. Moritz for 4 or 5 weeks beforehand. Came home, spent 2 weeks at home. Watched the cycling events. I'm watching Lizzie and Cav on TV. And then next week went down to London, and I can still remember going through Hyde Park through the security. Firstly, we went through the security, and the army guys were doing the security, and they saw us, and all the beepers went off as we went through the scanner, like, lads, you just go through. Next people, the French guys came in, wait there, lads. Take all your bottles out your bag, put it through the scanner, and then going on the warm-up on the course, and just the noise been absolutely incredible.
The whole atmosphere at that time was just incredible, and especially because, like you say, there'd been such a build-up to you two, and as two brothers, and you were at the top of the sport. You were having the battles, let's say, with Gomez at the time as well. For me, anecdotes stand up for a different reason, because I'd actually just started dating my wife at that point. So, and she's not from a triathlon or sports background. And when I said to her, I'm going to introduce it, I remember seeing him in 2012, the first year we went together. So it's one of those moments I think a lot of people can recite. I remember the 2012. I remember watching Ali and Jonny and what they did. So
Yeah.
What a legacy.
Yeah, what a legacy. And then obviously 2016, the Cozumel kind of, and now I've been known as a person who claps around the person.
Well, yeah, we got to, let's go about 2016, right? Because 2016, an interesting year, because you did other things in that year that were absolutely amazing from an athletic point of view. But yes, there was that incident in Cozumel in Mexico where heat exhaustion, I guess, it's an iconic moment. And I was like, do I ask him about this? Because I'm a brother as well. And I think it struck a chord with, non-athletes, just with people, because it wasn't just about the sport. It was about being human and siblings and so on. And me and my wife, again, we watched that again yesterday just to relive that moment, because it was just an iconic moment. How does it sit with you? Because like I say, there was other great achievements in that year in 2016, but that's the people remember it.
Honestly, 2016 achievements, definitely. Achievements and regrets 2016. I think I should have been Alistair in Rio, firstly. I was flying beforehand. I was actually, if it was anyone else, I reckon I'd have beaten them. But because it's Alistair, it's kind of my chink in my armour. 2016, how does it feel in Cozumel? Well, firstly, the obvious one is a bit of disappointment, because I've only become senior World Series champion once, and that was in 2012. That was the second time, and I deserved it that year, really.
Yeah.
and it was all going so well until the final 150 meters. So a little disappointed with that, and but also kind of, I guess, a sense of pride that I was part of that moment, and a pride and responsibility of the sport, which we do have, which help massively grow the sport. You know, the amount of places I've been where people know nothing about triathlon apart from that moment is incredible. You know, to set the context, I was hobbling down a finishing straight with 150 meters to go. My legs gave way. I overheated. I would have become world champion and Olympic silver medalist that year. It would been absolutely perfect. And then all I remember is Alistair grabbing hold of me, thinking, right, just leave me alone. I mean, Alistair throwing me across the finish line, thinking, wow, whoa, that's a bit too harsh. And then waking up in a hostel bed, I mean, like, what happened? And then I remember trying to phone my mum, her just bursting out in tears because she finally heard from me. And then going back to the hotel room hours later, switching my phone on and just crashing and thinking, what's going on here? And eventually then I turned it on again, and I was getting tweets from Gordon Ramsay, J.K. Rowling, and thinking, wow, this has gone crazy. But I was just really tired and hungry by that point. Woke up the next morning to have a request to go on the James Corden chat show and things like that.
Well, some of the people who'd retweeted and tweeted that moment was incredible.
I'm saying, and then come back to this kind of media storm of people asking us about it and going on, British chat shows to talk about it. And now, not pretty much a day doesn't go by without someone asking me. So, I guess we're proud to be part of that moment. Proud also to have a brother that actually helps you. Yeah, anyone knows Alistair knows he's the most competitive person in the world. And although there was a bit of competition involved in that, because he still thought, I can help him win the world title here. But at the same time, he knows the seriousness of that and thought, right, the best thing I can do is get into the finish line and get into safety as quick as possible. So proud that Alistair gave up his chance to win that race. And like I said, proud of what it's done for the sport. But at the same time, if I could go back and know the effect it's had on me long term, as in affecting my races going forward, because obviously heat exhaustion twice, could have had it early in the year, is not good for your body. I would definitely do that race differently.
Can we talk about that, then? You brought that up. We discussed this pre-show as well, right? That you're heat training currently as well. I didn't realise that, what are we talking about, 8 years ago or whatever it was now, 9 years ago almost, but the effects of heat exhaustion to that level could still have a long-term effect with the body, which is why you're so dedicated with the heat training now, I guess.
Yeah, so I, obviously, having 2 heat episodes is not great for the body. Your body shouldn't really get to that point. And I did test after that event, and I was told, right, you're good to go. There's no long-term damage. But basically, since then, my good performances of the long distance stuff has been few and far between, and I definitely feel like I've been capped. There's been many occasions where I've gone into a race flying, really fit, been able to deliver performance, and I've just got to kind of 90-95%. My body's gone, no, that'll do now for today. We're going back to protection. We're not doing this again. That's happened repeatedly. Paris test event, loads of other long distance races, and the last 3 years, I kind of always put it down to reasons of, I didn't fuel well enough. I had low iron going into it. I must have had a virus. And then finally, the last kind of 6 months, I've had a couple more, and I just thought, I'm sick of this now. So I'm actually going to really kind of investigate it. And after speaking to a few sports doctors recently and heat experts, they say this can have a long-term effect. And what it can do is, because your body is being pushed to the limit and over the limit, it almost goes, well, we're going to protect ourselves. And my superpower, which used to be, I could get my body up to 41 degrees core temperature and be fine. Apart from Cozumel, it probably went too high, but be fine. And now, maybe when I get to 39 and a half, it goes, whoa, let's just chill out here. So the way to kind of trick your body into that, the only time I've had good races over the last few years is when I've actually done heat training. Firstly, into Tokyo, I threw absolutely everything at it. I spent pretty much 30 hours in my heat chamber over time and hot baths and did everything I possibly can, and actually raced really well in Tokyo and Supertri afterwards. And then the other time is when I broke my wrist in the Commonwealth year, and we had the amazing weather in the summer, and I was in the heat train. I was in my conservatory with a pot on because I couldn't ride outside. So I was getting heat training done without even thinking about it. although my pot started to absolutely stink. But that was one of the side effects of heat training. And I raced really well in Sardinia off the back of that in a World Series. And again in Supertri. So every time I'd done heat training, I'd actually raced well. But I kind of did know that, but at the same time, I hate the heat training. So I was almost saying, no, it's not down to that. It's not why I do it. Riding indoors is fine. Riding outdoors is brilliant. Riding indoors, I can do some great stuff, some races. I can do workouts. But if I'm heat training, just looking at 200 watts and having a heart rate of 150 is just depressing, sweating away. So that's not why I do it. So I've kind of not wanted to do it. And now I'm at the point now, I think if I do the heat training and come to the doctor, if I do the heat training, it almost convinces my body that it can get hot and it's fine. And if you do it close to a race, you've had a few episodes leading into that race where your core's gone high and it teaches your body that it can do it. So it just doesn't need to panic. So that's my last kind of roll of the dice, if you like, for the longest distance training. So I've given it a good go, not as a Tokyo prep because I haven't quite got a head for that because that was a one-off, but 10 days of good heat training, which involves hot baths, hot turbo sessions, and then I'm going to race 70.3 in Gran Canaria and see if that works and see if I can actually do a good long distance race off the back of it. And if it doesn't, I might be at a stage then that I have to then, according to the heat doctor, decide what I want to do. Do I just do races that I know that my body can do? That's not as simple as just saying race in cold conditions because your body actually gets hotter than you think. That could be long distance bike races where you keep your core lower than you think, because obviously you can't get that hot for 6 hours.
You're not seeing the threshold.
Yeah. Or it could be Supertri races where you're constantly getting hot but then cooling down as you jump back in the water. Or call it a day and go, well, I've done my best. It is what it is. So this is kind of the last attempt really to see if I can do this long distance races.
Well, I can tell you, mate, I'm excited to see what happens this year because, like I say, I think you had a really great Supertri event, and I know you're working hard right now as well. And there's a great number of events coming up, I think, this year as well that you're focused on. And for me, you talk about that legacy. Whether it be Cozumel or whether it be 2012, whatever it might be.
Hopefully 2012.
Hopefully, every athlete, that's just sport and that's human life, right? That every athlete has those moments. And I think the culture of sport and athletes and us as fans, not that we like to see those moments, but those are the moments that cement you in people's hearts. And those are the moments that my kids will remember and your kids will, in the future will look back and think, wow, we're proud of what happened in that moment. So, and like I say, me as a fan of a triathlon and you and what you guys did and throughout your whole career is just amazing. I think the community would feel the same, and hopefully I say we get plenty of people on this ride tonight, hopefully as well, and anyone who wants to go and experience and train with Jonny can jump on the video workout. I can't remember which workout you did now, but it looked like you were working hard.
Yeah, I'm definitely working hard. We did it before Supertri Toulouse. I'm recording it, and I really got into it. But it was a workout where it's quite often I do at home. I can't remember exact timings, but you did like 15 seconds really hard or something, and then 3 minutes at a kind of threshold. So the idea being that you attacked to a group or attacked to the front of a group and then try to hold that gap.
The classic Brownlee type.
Yes, I was trying to imagine that you're going really hard, get that gap, right, I'm holding on, I'm getting over.
Riding away from Ali.
You're riding away from Alice to you. Alice is screaming at me, oh God, screaming at everyone else behind us.
Well, mate, I really appreciate your time today. But fantastic to sit down. Thanks for the brew as well. Proper Yorkshire, which I know you're proud of as well.
I'm definitely proud of coming from Yorkshire. What a place, God's County.
Says every Yorkshire person ever. One of our coaches from Yorkshire, and she would say exactly the same thing as you. Thanks for joining us for Inside the Ride by MyWhoosh. Don't forget to go and check out the cafe ride with Jonny and also those video on demand from Jonny and the other super triathletes. And we'll see you soon for another podcast.
On this journey we'll guide inside the ride where we fly.